Welcome to the Martinus Cosmology Podcast. My name is Mary McGovern and I'm your host for today. And I'm very happy to welcome Else Byskov from Denmark. She lives in Spain but is a Dane. And she's the author of 7 books in English on various aspects of Martinus cosmology. Welcome, Else.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
Today we're going to talk about one of your books, which is called Reincarnation in a Nutshell. What inspired you to write this book, Else?
Well, I've written other books about aspects of Martinus's work, and they're all a bit long and maybe a bit heavy. So I decided to write it's like a light version of taking out only one aspect of Martinus's huge work and explaining that in an easy and simple way so that people could get a taste of what it's all about. And then my good friend Mary McGovern, she thought that it was a brilliant idea that we could do it together. So this is actually a cooperation between her and me. And I do the Martinus part, and then she comes in afterwards with comments and what the knowledge, and she explains the knowledge that is already out there about the same subject. Like, for instance, Wayne Dyer or Anita Moriarty and, Eben Alexander, those who have experienced things that would support this, what Martinus says. And we started with the reincarnation because it is like so essential for understanding the Martinus's world picture. Because if we don't realize that we don't only live once, then we can't understand anything really. We can't understand where we're coming from and where we're going. We can't understand our fate, and we so many things we can't understand. So that is why we started with this. But it is the first book in a series, and the next will be called Fate and Karma in a Nutshell. So I hope we will be able to write 5 or 6 or 7. Let's see where we end. But the material is huge, so there should be enough.
Yeah, you have a whole world picture you can draw on.
Exactly.
So you're going to make it accessible in a lighter form?
Yes.
In a short form?
That was the idea. Not because I don't want, obviously, these are just meant as appetizers, so that people can then go on to read Martinus's original work, which is the whole idea, obviously.
Yes.
But to many, it is perhaps a tall order to start with it. So these are sort of small books that will maybe inspire people to read the original work.
Yeah. So what is it about the one life theory that you find challenging?
First, point 1 is that it has never been proved. Nobody has ever been able to prove that nothing survives the death of the physical body. That is point 1. But it's also the complete lack of logic in the one life theory. Because if we look at 2 different fates and we see a person who lives a long and happy life in prosperity and good health and dies when he is 90, and then on the other hand, we have maybe a child in Africa or Biafra or wherever who dies at the age of 2 from starvation. And then that is the only life that those people get. And where's the logic in that? That makes no sense at all.
And where's the love in that?
Yes, indeed. Where's the love? And where's the justice in it? So it's illogical, it's unloving, and it is
unjust.
Unjust, yes, exactly. So it has, the one life theory really has not a lot of good to say for itself. And as it has never been proved, it is, of course, difficult to understand why so many people adhere to it. And not only do they adhere to it, they defend it. They defend it and say, no, you only believe in reincarnation because you're afraid to die or something. No, it has nothing to do with it. The logic of reincarnation and the whole argumentation for why it has to be like that is what we are presenting in this book, so that when people have read it, they should hopefully be very convinced that it cannot be that we only live one life. And that is our hope, and so many people are afraid to die, and it is absolutely unnecessary because that death does not exist. a death that includes an extinction of our consciousness does not exist. It is not like that. That's not how things are. And when you have read this book, you will hopefully be convinced. Then you could, of course, or make up your own mind. But I think that we have we present all the logic and all the argumentation for why reincarnation is much more than a belief, because many people also think it's a belief system, but it's not. It's much more than a belief system. But unfortunately, we can say that a lot of people in the Western world, when they think of reincarnation, they think, oh, then I have to come back as a snake or a rat. and that is absolutely not how things are. You can only come back as you. You are you, and you are you. You were you in former lives, and you will be you in a better version, in an improved version in your next life. So there's a complete misunderstanding that you can come back in subhuman forms. How would that happen? That is completely impossible.
So how is it that you come back as an improved version of yourself? How does that work?
It is because for each life you live, you have a lot of experiences. And these experiences make you learn stuff. They teach you that what you did then was maybe not so smart. And because of the law of karma, you get back what you reap what you sow. So when you have sown something that is maybe not such a good idea, let's say that you have stolen or you have lied, then you will be stolen from and you will be lied to. And in that way, over many incarnations, you improve from being the animal that we once were to becoming a much better person. So it is clear that when we reincarnate in our next life, we will be an improved version of who we are, who we were when we were born in this life. So it's all about, we really move forward in evolution. And in our next life, we will become more moral, more intelligent, more understanding, more helpful, more humanitarian, more loving. And that's how it goes until we reach cosmic consciousness.
So this process of reincarnation is taking us towards a moral perfection. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And
yes.
Total insight?
Yes, absolutely. It's a journey into better morals. Absolutely. Yeah. Into a better behavior. Until we realize that it pays to be good. We have to be good. If we want to reap a happy fate, we have to sow it first. And if we go out and sow misery for others, that is what we will reap. And as most people don't realize it, they think that they can go around and shout and steal and lie and cheat, and they still expect to reap love. But that is not how things work. But as we live life after life, we gradually come to understand that. And then we will learn how to only sow what we are happy to reap.
So if we're having experiences in this life that we don't like, what are they telling us?
They are telling us that somewhere in our past, it could be in this life, but it could also be in a former life, we sowed this. Everybody, each and every one of us, is responsible for his own fate. So there's never somebody else's fault.
So life is, in a way, lifting up a mirror,
yes,
and showing us who we really are.
Absolutely.
Martinus has this term, the direct speech of life.
Yes.
So life is talking to us through
Absolutely.
the
It's talking to us all the time, every moment. From we wake up in the morning till we go to bed at night. We might as well wake up and think, oh, the teacher has already arrived. He's standing at the blackboard. What's he going to teach me today? And then be an attentive pupil. That always helps.
Yes. Yeah, because if you look at the different types of fate there are on Earth, some children are born handicapped in the middle of a war with parents who are not in a situation to be able to help them, and others are born in very wealthy circumstances with all the benefits of a civilized society. On the surface, it seems very, very unjust.
Yes.
But you say that there's a larger perspective here to look at.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody can understand his or her fate seen in a one-life perspective.
No.
You simply can't. No. You can't understand it, and that's why people today are so like wondering what is going on and what's it all about. And that's because the one life perspective simply has no value for as an explanation about the meaning of life. Absolutely not. So it's very important to understand that we are eternal beings on an eternal journey through physical and spiritual realms. And our journey at the moment, this is a very large journey, obviously. It spans eternity. But we have to understand that at the moment we are moving from being animals or unfinished human beings to becoming finished human beings. And most people, they don't like to hear that they are unfinished human beings. But if we, as long as we are still able to lie and steal and cheat, a lot of people cheat on their husbands, that's very popular today, or their wives. And as long as you can cheat other people for money, and as long as you are jealous and you like to boast and think that you are something big and show off, all those things are really residues from a very animal mentality. And that is our goal at the moment in our evolution, is to outgrow these tendencies and become more and more humanitarian, more and more helpful, more and more all-loving, and to embrace all types of living beings. And another very important point here is to stop eating meat, because that is absolutely not very loving. You kill another living being to eat meat which you absolutely do not need. It's not a vital necessity to eat meat. So getting away from eating meat is also a very important point, because Martinus says that the moment you stop eating meat, it changes your life in so many ways. It also gives you much better health. Better health.
Yes.
So there's a lot to be said for that.
Yes. And also respecting the animals and their need for their own experience of life. Perhaps you could tell me something about how the principle of reincarnation works?
Yes. The first thing that we must realize is that we are not identical to our physical body. Our physical body is just a tool. It's an instrument that our consciousness forces uses as long as it works. But then you will probably ask, but who are we then? We are our consciousness. Our consciousness is not limited to the brain, but it sits around the whole body, and those who can see auras are able to see it. But you can also today you can have photographs of auras. So around our body there's an energy field, and this energy field is actually who we really are. And in this energy field we have our eye, our sense of who we are, not as in what we look with, what we watch with, but when I say eye, this is what we have. And it is there in the energy field, together with our fate element and all our talents, all our abilities, our whole memory. Everything that we are is embedded in the electromagnetic radiation of the electric field of our aura. So that is who we are. We are not the physical body. When the physical body becomes useless through old age or accidents or whatever, then the I or the whole package, the spirit, we can call it the spirit, this field of energy is of course the spirit. It pulls out and it moves on to another plane of existence, where it will have a good long rest, and then after some time it will want to come back to the physical plane, because it needs to come back in order to continue with its evolution. We cannot learn anything on the spiritual plane. The spiritual plane is a plane of rest. So in order to get on with our evolution towards becoming real human beings, we have to come back to the physical plane. The physical plane is actually like a kind of school. It's where we go to school to become real human beings. And this means that as soon as the spirit pulls out of the physical body starts to dissolve, because it was the physical body that held it was the spiritual body that held the physical body together. But just because the spirit is not connected to a physical body, it does not mean that it cannot live on. Of course it can. It's a field of energy. Energy cannot be dissolved and it cannot be created. So it cannot cease to exist. The energy field cannot cease to exist, and it is eternal. So it will pull out of the physical body, and then I said it will move on to the spiritual plane. But it's very important to understand that the spirit body lives on irrespective of whether it's connected to a physical body or not. We always have our spirit body, and then from time to time, in addition to that, we have a physical body.
We've seen instances of people who have died on the operating table and have been brought back to life. We've seen no brain activity, no heart activity, clinically dead on the operating table.
Yeah.
But yet they can be brought back to life, and then they can describe what they saw. Yes. They can describe the view from the top of the operating theatre. They can see things that lay at the top of a cupboard that you couldn't see if you were from the level of the floor. And they can describe things that were said while they were dead.
Yes.
So that's in a way pointing to what you're saying, that the consciousness, the I, can exist outside the physical organism.
Yes, of course, what you're referring to is the near-death experience. And the near-death experience has been documented in hundreds of studies, and hundreds of books have been published about it. It's completely and totally interesting. And it is true, as you say, that you on the operating table, for instance, or during a car crash, the spirit. If the spirit sees that this is not going in the good direction, it can pull out, and then it can actually observe the scene from above. Mm-hmm. There's also it's an example I have in the book where a guy is in a car crash, and he then observes the whole crash taking place from a position up above it. So yes, and then somehow some of those near-death experiences, they also have an experience where they meet a being of light. They have a sort of a longish stay where they have time to go up to the spiritual plane and meet spiritual beings. And some they don't. They just have maybe a shorter time up there, and then they return to their physical body. I think one of the most famous near-death experiences at the moment is probably Anita Moorjana, Dying to Be Me. And that's an highly interesting and very recommendable book, because she was dying from cancer. And then she left her physical body, and she had a wonderful experience up there. And she came back to a totally devastated, ill and sick body. And in less than a week, she was completely cured.
Wow.
It's such a fantastic story. And Anita Moorjana, I've met her. She's the sweetest, loveliest, most wonderful person. Mm. So, I mean, there's so much evidence out there if only people will look at it. It's all there. Mm. Just look in the direction.
But there are scientists working with these near-death experiences, aren't there?
Well, there was a very famous neurosurgeon, Ibn Alexander, who, much to his own surprise, had a near-death experience. He actually died from, I can't remember, it was some infection that totally took over his body. And he had always been completely rejective of this. And he said, no, that's just the brain playing tricks. Mm. And then he had, Providence has a lot of humor. He had one of these experiences himself, which of course, obviously, totally changed the way he looked upon it. Mm. And he's written now 2 books about his near-death experience. Mm. And the first, I haven't read the second, but I read the first, and it's very interesting what he experiences and how he comes back. And he said, it cannot be. I should have been dead, because he went from an ordinary medical perspective, he really should have died, because he was so ill. He was so complete. His body was devastated. But somehow he came back and was able to talk about it. I'm sure he was on a mission, because when such a hardcore medical or materialistic scientist can come and tell this, then somebody will start listening.
Yes.
Some of the other hardcore scientists will start listening and saying, "Oh, maybe there's something to this."
I think his books have become bestsellers. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I think he's sold many million copies.
That's so convincing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what about the fact that the body itself changes throughout one life? We talked about the principle of reincarnation from one life to another, but within one life, there's a lot of cell renewal, a lot of change. We see the process of aging. We have both a certain age, and we don't have the bodies that we had when we were 1 year old or 5 years old. Or
that's also
or
a really...
20. Is that a kind of reincarnation, or what's going on there?
Yes, it actually is. Because what people don't realize is that our physical bodies are under a constant change of the cells are under a constant process of cell renewal. The lifetime of an average cell is 3 months. So after 3 months, that cell is replaced with a new cell. And after a year, all our physical matter has been replaced. And science is aware of this. They don't really want to talk about it because they have the problem that if everything is replaced, then where's the constant? Where is the constant in the body? Where is the part that can remember when it was a child, when it no longer has that body? And Martinus is very clear about this. He says that after a year, every single cell in our body has been replaced. And he also has the example that if you look at 3 different pictures of the same person, maybe one when he was 8 and one when he was 30 and one when he was 50, you are looking at 3 different bodies. Yeah. Those 3 bodies have not one single cell in common. Still, we're looking at pictures of the same person. And how can that be? That can only be because the constant of the physical body is not in the physical body. It's not something physical. It's not something you can find even if you dig for 50 years in a physical body. It's because the constant is our spirit. And the spirit is the one that holds the whole thing, as I said, that holds the body together, and the way it looks and the way it behaves and the way it is and all its characteristics. And all these things are embedded in the electromagnetic radiation of the spirit, because the electromagnetic radiation has the ability to store information. All the information about the person we are is stored in the field. So in the course of a whole lifetime, let's say Martinus, for example, he lived till he was 90. He has changed his body many, many, many times. But each time when this happens, like on a constant daily basis, that our spirit reincarnates all the time into the constantly renewed physical matter of the physical body. So reincarnation is not something that only takes place between 2 physical lives. It takes place all the time. So
when we remove dry skin, when we take a bath and dry skin falls off our legs or whatever, exactly. It's actually a process of reincarnation that's going on.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yes, we don't normally think of that in the bath, but no, but that's what's going on.
Especially it goes on via the digestive tract. There's a whole lot. The inside of the digestive tract is where where it happens most quickly. If you have like a sore in your mouth, you know how quickly that heals.
Yes,
and that's because that this type of a tissue,
mucous membrane.
The mucous membrane that renews itself
very quickly
at a terrific speed.
I think the blood does too. I think the blood is very, very quick.
Yes, probably.
I read somewhere a long time ago in a Swedish book that blood cells are those that renew themselves the quickest.
Okay.
Which is perhaps why we can actually tolerate blood transfusions, because we have very quickly replaced this blood with our own, so to speak.
Yeah.
It reincarnates very, very quickly.
Yeah, it's true.
So
no, there's nothing left. So what we have to just to realize that reincarnation is nothing unusual. It doesn't only happen between lives.
So where are we between lives?
Yes, between lives we are on the spiritual plane, and the spiritual plane at our present level of evolution is in the aura of the earth. The earth is also a living being, and like all other living beings, the earth has an aura or a spiritual field, a spirit field around it, and this is completely accepted by science, that you can actually look up and see not a picture, but you can see a representation of the magnetic field of the earth, and that is where you will stay between two incarnations as long as you belong to the earth, which is what we do at the moment. But what it's very important to understand that everything is vibration, and our spirit body is also vibrating at a specific wavelength, and this wavelength is defined by the thought matter that is typically being thought in that consciousness. So if you are a very loving person, you will be attracted, this is the law of attraction that takes over here, you will be attracted to a wavelength in the Earth's aura that corresponds to your own wavelength. So if you're a very loving person, you will end up on a wavelength where a lot of other loving persons are, and that will be very nice. Let's say you're a terrorist, and you're very angry and you're pissed off with the world and you think everything is wrong with it, and then you take your own life together with the life of a whole lot of other people, and then your vibration and wavelength will of course be different from the very loving person, so you will be attracted to a different wavelength in the aura of the earth, and that wavelength is not a nice place. It'll be full of other hateful, pissed off and angry people who are ready to kill other people. And that's how it is. You will be attracted to a wavelength in the aura of the earth that corresponds to your own. And that's simple how it is, because that's how the law of attraction works. And it cannot work in any other way. And then after some time, when you have been in the spiritual world for some time, it depends very much on your karma and how long you have lived. At a certain point, you will say to yourself, okay, this was nice, and thank you for a wonderful holiday, 5-star holiday. But now I'm ready to get on with my evolution, because I know that if I don't, I will be stuck here, and I can't be stuck here forever, so let's get on with it. And then you're placed in what Martinus called the Kingdom of Bliss, which is from that kingdom that all reincarnation takes place. And then you will start emitting, of course you have your wavelength that reflects who you are, and you will emit a wavelength that will then be picked up during the intercourse by a lovemaking couple. And the lovemaking couple, during the act of sex, they also emit a specific wavelength, a joint specific wavelength. And normally people on the physical plane, they cannot reach a level, a fine enough energy to be able to reach up to the spiritual plane and attract a discarnate being. But during the build-up to orgasm and during the orgasm, they actually reach a very high vibration. And that is high enough to attract a spiritual being waiting for reincarnation. So they will meet, or they will be attracted to each other on the condition that they have certain talents and certain tendencies in common. Like you cannot be a very loving person will be born to loving parents, and a very aggressive person will be born to aggressive parents. That's also the law of attraction that sees to it that you land with parents that fit your own mental setup. But as soon as when the egg and the sperm cell are united, this third party, the discarnate being, joins the party. And if it didn't, nothing would happen. I mean, you cannot create a new living being, a new human being, on the basis of only the sperm and the egg cell. They don't have a clue. The only thing they have to do is deliver a very, very tiny bit of physical matter which the discarnate being can begin to create its new body with. So when science thinks that all we need is these two sex cells, they're very, very wrong. And of course, this is also, they sort of know that, but they don't have the explanation. But Martinus, of course, explains that in the spirit field, in the spirit field of the discarnate, and now on its way to becoming a carnate being, lies all the information about how a new body is created. It has its talent kernels full of information about this process as an automatic function. So it is this knowledge that the spiritual being brings with it to the process of embryogenesis, that is embryogenesis, which is completely essential to the whole process. Without if the discarnate being didn't join this party, no new being would come into existence. And as soon as the discarnate being takes this fertilized egg into possession, it starts picking and choosing in the genetic material. It starts creating different cell types, and it does this completely in its own favor. And this is very important. It's something that Martinus really underlines, that it creates a body completely in its own favor. Okay, it has to take the genetic material into consideration, but the genes are not something that are cut in stone. The genes can be closed, they can be turned on and they can be turned off. And the discarnate being turns on the genes it wants and turns off those he doesn't want. And in the end, it has created a completely new body that fits not only what its physical, the way it looks, but also the things that it knows it has to come down to learn this time around. So the whole thing is controlled by the spiritual incoming soul. And then when the child is born, you notice how quickly, first of all, you notice how many things it can actually do the moment it's born. I remember when I went to school, we were told, the child that is born is a tabula rasa. It knows nothing, and now it has to learn everything from scratch. And that is such a misconception. It knows so many things. And you can see after, it can smile, it can see, it can smell, it can hear, it can Google, or Google, not Google. Goggle. And it can do a lot of things, and in no time, it sits up, and then it crawls, and then it walks. And it can do all these things because it has done it before. It's been to the physical plane thousands and millions of times before. We all have.
And would this explain the fact that children they differ so widely in how talented they are? I myself have worked a lot with so-called child prodigies.
Yes.
In my case, small violinists who were extremely talented. And I had the experience of teaching one little girl. Well, she was 4 years old. And I felt I wasn't teaching her at all. I was just reminding her of what she knew already. And when she was 7, she went to the Yehudi Menuhin school in London because by 7 she was playing the big violin concertos and so on. And I didn't feel I was teaching her. I was just observing this fantastically quick process.
Yes, this is, of course, it's very important because the talents that we create over life, they are stored in what Martinus calls the fate element. So whatever we're good at, we take with us into our next life. And it's so obvious because when you look at your own children, you can see that they are good at something, and some of them, even siblings of the same sex, some are good at something, and another one is good at something else. And it's so obvious. But obviously, with those child prodigies that you are mentioning, this is huge. It's really huge. And the girl that you're talking about who could play the violin at the age of 4, it's obvious that this is not something that she has learned in her present life. It is something that she has learned in past lives. And all these talents, you take your talents with you from one life to the next. And I mean, now you can watch on YouTube children that have these amazing abilities to play a musical instrument. And Martinus says, like in your case with the little girl, it takes 3 to 4 incarnations of diligent studies and practice to reach the level. I mean, you also see on YouTube children that are very good at playing the piano, and it's obvious they cannot have learned that level.
No,
they can't. And of course, and when Martinus says it takes 3 to 4 incarnations, then then no wonder that they can't have learned it in this life.
I find that a very comforting thought, because if you do want to be a good musician or a good artist or good architect or whatever, it takes an awful lot of work, and you might be frustrated that you don't get as far as you want to in one life.
Exactly.
And you still have this burning desire to become as good as your idols.
Yeah, precisely. And that's the wonderful thing about this, what Martinus called talent kernels and talents that are stored in the fate element, that whatever you practice, and you can start practicing when you are 80. And many people say, no, it's too late. I can't start to play the guitar now because I'm 60 or something. No. Go ahead. And whatever you learn, you will take with you into your next life, and then you can continue and become better. So it's absolutely a misunderstanding that you will lose whatever abilities you practice. You can't. They will come with you.
And while we're on the subject of children, there are many children who claim to have remembered previous lives, or at least it seems like they remember things that can only be connected with a previous life.
Yes. Yes, we are very much in debt to the late Ian Stevenson in this field, because he spent his whole life actually investigating children and finding children who claimed that they could remember a past life, and they could remember who they were and where they lived. So Ian Stevenson, he had like a lot of helpers who helped him find these children, and he would visit them and hear about them. And in all cases, they remembered who they were. They could remember a specific person. They could remember the name and the place they lived. And things like secrets about the family, that it was impossible that they could know those without having been that person in a former life. So this is absolutely very interesting. But of course, it is not normal. It is not usual that you can remember a past life. When you can, it is normally or usually because your last life ended in a dramatic way. Like if you were shot or killed, or in other ways, like in a car accident, something very drastic happened. Then the memory might spill over into your next incarnation. But normally you can only remember until you're around 8. And then you become so involved in your present incarnation that it sort of glides in the background. Okay. But
it's one of the arguments against the idea of reincarnation, that people say, well, one can't remember previous lives, so how do you know they exist?
Exactly, and that is of course another thing that we must talk about, because Martinus says it's not. The idea is not that we are supposed to remember our past lives, because it would be such a confusing memory to walk around with. Let's say that we had died under very dramatic circumstances, or we had been tortured to death, or we had been in the concentration camp, or whatever. And then we would be reborn, and we would be reborn with this memory. It would be very painful. It would be something very painful. So the idea is that we are born with no memory of our past lives. But Martinus also points out very clearly, but it doesn't matter if we remember them actively or not, because our past lives are with us in every aspect of the person we are today. We are a result of all the past lives we have lived. So we don't have to remember them. We are all our past lives and our ways of reaction, our ways of thinking, our habits, our likes and dislikes, our moral level of what we can find it in our hearts to do to others. All this is a reflection of what experiences we've been through in former lives. So we don't have to remember them. We are our past lives. So never mind with that.
So you're saying that all the painful experiences we've had in previous lives develop the empathy we have in this life.
That's the whole point. Yeah. That people ask, why do we have to suffer? And the thing is that, of course, it's not nice to suffer, but there's a reason for our suffering, because that develops our ability to feel compassion. And these are very important abilities to have as we move forward towards the real human being. Mm. The idea is that for each life we live, we should become more and more humanitarian, more and more helpful, more and more all-loving. We're not there yet, but we are on our way.
So how does this idea of reincarnation affect your approach to life today?
Ooh. I mean, today I don't know how I would live if I didn't have this knowledge. I think if I was subject to the mainstream idea that I only live once, and I look at the world and there's so much going on that is not pleasant to look at. There's war and there's famine and there are terrorists and there's global warming and pollution and there's Trump and Brexit and all that. I think I wouldn't be able to stand it. Mm. But now with the Martinus' worldview, you know that this is just a stage in evolution. This is a stage that will pass, and it's a learning stage that where we're learning from our mistakes. And if we didn't make all these mistakes, we wouldn't be as wise as we are today. So it's all a learning process for the whole population of the earth. And the end result, according to Martinus, is absolutely clear, that we will reach the real human kingdom in about 3,000 years. The last war will be fought on this planet in 500 years, and from then on it will go really quickly. And in the end, we will have only one kingdom, and we will all live in peace and prosperity and harmony. That is where we are heading. And I mean, Martinus' world picture is also a deeply optimistic world picture, because once you have read it, you know that all these doomsday visions, that's not going to happen. Mm. And you can see the world becomes such a beautiful place when you look at it through Martinus' lenses. So it affects my life every day. Every day I'm so happy, and I know I have nothing to fear. I'm not afraid of anything, because I know I cannot die. Okay, I might fall over and hurt myself, or I might even maybe become ill. But it's all a process. I know why. I know why these things are happening. They are happening in order for me to develop towards becoming a more humanitarian and more all-loving being. And that's all wonderful. It's a beautiful process. And enjoy the journey is what I'm thinking.
Well, thank you very much, Else, for that very optimistic conclusion. And thank you for joining the Martinus Cosmology podcast today.
I'm very happy. Thank you.
Thank you.